Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we cut through the noise and get straight to the insights you need. We've all faced life's emotional storms, right? Those moments when feelings threaten to just overwhelm us. And the sheer volume of advice out there can feel like another storm entirely. But what if there was a robust, scientifically proven way to not just weather those storms, but to fundamentally change how you experience them? Today we're plunging into a topic that affects countless lives: borderline personality disorder, or BPD. As our sources confirm, individuals meeting the criteria for BPD are quite literally flooding mental health and clinical practitioners' offices. The impact is profound for them and their loved ones. And for a long time, finding effective treatment was a significant challenge, which makes today's topic just so crucial.
Precisely. And that's why we're focusing on dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT. This isn't just another therapeutic approach. It holds a truly groundbreaking status. Developed by Marsha Linehan, DBT was actually the first psychotherapy proven effective for BPD through controlled clinical trials. I mean, that's a huge milestone in mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sets the stage perfectly for our deep dive today into Marsha Linehan's Skills Training Manual for Treating Borderline Personality. Think of this as your shortcut, maybe, to understanding the foundational concepts and practical tools within this powerful, evidence-based treatment. So to truly navigate these emotional storms, we first need to understand their very origin. DBT offers this kind of profound meteorological map, if you will, to explain why some storms rage so intensely. What's at the heart of this understanding?
Okay, well, at its core, DBT is built upon the biosocial theory of BPD. And this theory basically asserts that the central disorder is emotion dysregulation. Now, this isn't just about struggling with emotions. It's understood as a joint outcome of two powerful forces working together. First, there's this biological predisposition. So individuals with BPD, they tend to have a very high sensitivity to emotional stimuli. They respond with incredibly intense emotions, and this is crucial. Their emotional baseline returns to normal very, very slowly.
Right. So if you imagine someone born with an incredibly sensitive internal alarm system, one that's always on high alert and really loud, and then they grow up in an environment where they're constantly told their alarm is wrong or it's exaggerated or something to be ashamed of, you can start to see the picture forming, can't you?
Exactly. That environment is the second force, an invalidating one. This involves situations where painful experiences are consistently trivialized, or the expression of emotions, especially negative ones, is punished. Or maybe personal struggles are put down to negative traits like lack of motivation or discipline. The environment might even use criticism or, more severe forms of punishment like physical or sexual abuse to control behavior. Now, our source does note that statistic that up to 75% of individuals with BPD have experienced some sort of sexual abuse in childhood. But it's really important to be impartial here. The manual emphasizes it's unclear if abuse itself causes BPD, or if maybe both arise from extensive familial dysfunction and invalidation. The critical understanding is always the interaction of that biological vulnerability with the invalidating environment. That interplay is the key.
Okay, so if that's the foundational theory, that delicate interaction between biology and environment, what does this actually mean for how DBT steps in to help? Because it's not just about changing things, is it? It feels like there's something deeper going on.
There absolutely is. A profound nuance, really. One particularly insightful aspect of DBT, especially compared to many cognitive behavioral therapies that often focus solely on change, is its unique integration of what Linehan calls a technology of acceptance alongside its change procedures. This involves the radical acceptance of self and the world exactly as they are in the moment, which is a significant departure from just trying to change everything all the time.
Acceptance and change.
Exactly. Secondly, DBT directly addresses therapy interfering behaviors. And interestingly, not just from the client, but from the therapist too. It acknowledges that the treatment process itself can present challenges, and both parties have a role in keeping things on track. Thirdly, the therapeutic relationship is seen as absolutely essential, especially when working with suicidal and borderline individuals. It fosters this truly collaborative and supportive environment. And finally, DBT fully embraces dialectical processes, which means it kind of leans into apparent contradictions and looks for a synthesis, a balance. Like, for example, balancing the logical, reasonable mind with the emotionally driven emotion mind to find what's called wise mind.
Okay, so once we understand the storm's nature, DBT doesn't just hand you an umbrella, it gives you the blueprints for a robust shelter. So if DBT is this broad-based approach, how does the skills training component actually function? Is it mainly a one-on-one thing, or is there a group dynamic at its heart?
That's a great question, and it's a key part of how DBT works. So, while individual skills training is technically possible, the manual really highlights that it requires immense discipline from both the client and the therapist. Linehan actually describes it almost like trying to teach a person how to put up a tent in the middle of a hurricane.
Wow, yeah.
So, the effectiveness of DDT with BPD patients has really been shown to be a combination of individual psychotherapy and skills training, often delivered in a group setting. Now, groups can present challenges, sure, like difficulty tracking individual emotional responses sometimes, or more opportunities for therapist mistakes, perhaps. But the group dynamic also offers unique benefits: peer support, learning from others' experiences, that sort of thing. And regarding how the skills are taught, the manual specifically suggests 8-week modules that are repeated rather than doing longer, sort of massed practice sessions. This spaced practice approach is deliberate. It accounts for client mood variability, different people having different needs at different times, and it allows for continued incremental practice of what is, let's face it, pretty comprehensive and complex material.
So it sounds like skills training isn't meant to replace individual therapy then, but to work hand in hand.
Yeah.
How are those roles typically divided? And what makes that collaboration so essential?
Yeah, they're quite distinct roles. You can almost think of it like a general practitioner referring to a specialist. The individual psychotherapist typically handles crises, especially suicidal behavior. They process personal issues and help clients integrate the skills into their daily lives. The skills trainers, on the other hand, they focus strictly on teaching the psychosocial skills. It's very structured. And what's absolutely crucial for this to work is the necessity of regular consultation between the individual therapists and the skills trainers. This makes sure everyone's on the same page, coordinating care. And of course, clients have to provide explicit consent for this collaboration. It's definitely a team effort.
Okay, let's picture a typical skills training session then. What's the rhythm? What happens from the moment a client walks in? How does it set the tone for learning these new tools?
Right. So a session usually starts with a startup phase. This involves maybe filling out any research or treatment evaluation forms and a brief check-in with anyone who missed previous sessions. And this is an important moment to gently address any therapy interfering behaviors, like maybe not calling ahead if a session is going to be missed, setting expectations. Then comes the homework review. The primary leader goes around the circle asking each member to share their practice efforts from the past week, and it's really vital here for them to describe both their successes and any difficulties they encountered, with detailed descriptions of how they actually used the skills. The manual even notes that the word homework itself can be a bit tricky for some, so discussing the semantics early on can be helpful, framing it positively.
Makes sense.
After about an hour, there's usually a 10-15-minute break. This is important for client interaction, group cohesion, but leaders also need to be alert because it's actually a common time for clients to leave if they're feeling overwhelmed.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. Following the break is the presentation of new material, which is the didactic part, the lecture-based portion where the new skill is taught. And finally, there's the wind down. This is really crucial for borderline clients who often leave sessions feeling emotionally charged. Methods include things like a process-observing wind-down, where participants share observations about the session itself, or doing internal observation exercises like an abbreviated relaxation or sensate focus. An example from the manual is just instructing clients to notice. Can you feel your arm resting on the armrest? The aim here is really to practice observing and taking a non-judgmental stance before they head out.
Beyond the session structure itself, what are the fundamental ground rules for participation? What defines the container of this skills training, making sure it's a safe and effective space for everyone?
Right. The rules are explicit and they serve to create a safe, consistent environment. First, clients must be in ongoing individual therapy. That's non-negotiable. Second, they are not to come to sessions under the influence of drugs or alcohol. And this also opens a door to discuss the emotional pain that skills training itself can sometimes bring up. Third, confidentiality is paramount. Information and names remain confidential, with two key exceptions: discussions with their individual therapists and situations involving suicide risk where help absolutely must be summoned. Fourth, there's the 3 missed sessions in a row rule. This just clarifies expectations and reduces the chance of clients sort of sliding out of therapy without explicitly ending it.
Okay.
And then there's a particularly powerful rule, which is noteworthy because it was actually suggested by a client originally. It said if clients call one another for help when feeling suicidal, they must be willing to accept help from the person they called. Yeah, it stems from instances where a helper was left in anguish, caught between a promise of confidentiality and the urgent need to save a life. It's about fostering responsible peer support, acknowledging the intensity of the situations clients might face.
That's, yeah, that's really profound.
Hmm.
Okay, this is where it gets truly fascinating, the practical heart of DBT. Let's dive into the 4 main skills modules that clients learn. Starting with core mindfulness. It sounds like the foundation for everything else, doesn't it?
It absolutely is the bedrock. Core mindfulness is fundamental to DBT. It helps individuals gain control over their attention and experience. It introduces 3 basic states of mind. First, reasonable mind. This is logical, factual, cool, focused on empirical data, planning, that sort of thing. Then there's emotion mind. This is where thinking and behavior are primarily controlled by current emotions. Cognitions get hot, and logical thinking becomes really difficult. And the third state is wise mind. This is seen as the integration of these two, reasonable and emotion mind. It adds an intuitive knowing, something beyond just logic and emotion. The manual describes wise mind kind of like a deep well where the water is wise mind, but there are often these trap doors, thoughts, feelings, urges that impede access, making you think the well is dry.
Okay, so how do we begin to access this wise mind? What are the actual what and how skills of mindfulness that DBT teaches, like the practical steps?
Good question. To get to wise mind, DDT teaches what skills and how skills. The what skills are the things you do when you're being mindful. First is observing. This is just sensing or experiencing without describing or labeling. The instruction might be something simple like experience your fanny on the chair, just focusing on pure sensation. Second is describing. This is applying verbal labels to events and responses, but learning not to take emotions or thoughts literally. So distinguishing, for instance, between I am a jerk and a thought I am a jerk has come into my mind. It's about sticking to just the facts, no judgment.
Ah, that's a key distinction.
It is. And the third, what skill, is participating. This means entering wholly into an activity without self-consciousness, being fully present, like a skillful athlete responding flexibly and smoothly to the game.
Okay, those are the what skills. What about the how skills? How you do the what skills?
Exactly. The how skills describe the way you practice the what skills. First is taking a non-judgmental stance. This means taking a non-evaluative approach, not labeling something as good or bad, right or wrong, but focusing on consequences. As the manual says, don't judge judging itself, but recognize that most people probably overdo it.
Yeah.
Second, how skill is one mindfully. This is focusing attention on one thing at a time, bringing your whole self to a task, doing one thing at a time. This includes techniques like scheduled worry time, where you consciously set aside a specific period to address your worries, which helps train your mind to release them the rest of the day and bring your focus back to the present task.
Interesting.
And finally, there's effectiveness. This means doing what works, being political or savvy, sometimes even sacrificing principles maybe to achieve a necessary goal. It's about focusing on practical outcomes.
Hearing about the wise mind and these what's and how skills, I can almost picture someone in a session, slowly gaining control over their attention. The real insight here, especially for individuals whose internal world is often like a chaotic storm, is that these seemingly simple what and how skills are the foundational anchors. They're not just techniques, they're the pathway to creating that internal space, that vital pause button that allows for choice, where maybe before there was only reaction. Okay, moving from our inner world to how we navigate the world outside, many people struggle profoundly with relationships. How does DBT equip clients to handle these complex interactions, especially when emotions are running high?
Well, a critical point in interpersonal effectiveness for BPD is that individuals often kind of vacillate between extreme conflict avoidance on one hand and intense confrontation on the other, usually depending on their current mood. So the goal of this module is to equip clients to assert their wishes, goals, and opinions effectively, working to change difficult environments, obtain their objectives in relationships, all while maximizing the chances of getting their needs met without damaging the relationship or their self-respect. It's a balancing act.
Yeah, sounds like it. What are some of the common pitfalls or maybe internal blocks that get in the way of being interpersonally effective for people?
Our source points out several factors. Sometimes it's simply a lack of skill, just not knowing what to say or how to act effectively in a situation. Other times, worry thoughts interfere, like they won't like me or I'm such a bad person, I don't deserve this, Those kinds of thoughts. Intense emotions like anger or fear can also just hijack the system, making it impossible to act effectively. Indecision is another big one, maybe being ambivalent about priorities, or struggling to balance asking for too much versus not asking for anything at all. That can paralyze action. And finally, sometimes the environment itself makes it impossible, even for a skilled person, to be effective, especially if other people involved are too powerful or unresponsive. Our source also mentions common myths about interpersonal effectiveness, like the belief that if you don't get what you want, it's always a skill failure on your part, which can lead to a lot of self-blame and frustration.
Right, that's important. So are there specific frameworks or acronyms to help remember and apply these skills in the heat of the moment? DBT seems to really have a knack for memorable acronyms, doesn't it? It's like the ultimate cheat sheet for life's trickiest moments.
It truly does, yeah. They can be really helpful anchors. For achieving your objectives in a situation, there's Dear Man, that
Mhm.
stands for. Describe the situation objectively. Express your feelings and opinions clearly using I statements. Assert your wishes by asking directly or saying no clearly. Reinforce or reward the person ahead of time for responding positively. Stay mindful of your objectives. This is where the broken record technique comes in, just calmly repeating your point. Appear confident, even if you don't feel it, and negotiate if necessary. Be willing to give to get.
Your man. Okay.
Then, for relationship effectiveness, meaning keeping the relationship healthy and positive, we have give, be gentle, no attacks, threats, or judging, act interested in the other person, validate their feelings or perspective, even if you disagree, and use an easy manner, a little humor, a smile.
Got it.
And finally, for self-respect effectiveness, that's keeping your respect for yourself during the interaction, there's fast. That. Be fair to yourself and others. Avoid over-apologizing. Don't apologize when it's not warranted. Stick to your values. Don't sell yourself out. And be truthful. Avoid lying or exaggerating.
Your man. Give. Fast.
Yeah.
Okay, that's quite a toolbox.
It is. These frameworks provide really concrete steps for navigating those complex social interactions.
So the core insight here seems to be that interpersonal effectiveness isn't just about getting what you want. It's about navigating that really delicate balance of asserting yourself while preserving key relationships and maintaining your own self-respect. It's kind of a masterclass in social agility. All right, when we talk about the intensity of emotions in BPD, it naturally leads us to the next critical module, emotion regulation. For many, the immediate thought might be, can I just turn these feelings off? But I imagine DBT takes a far more nuanced approach than just stopping emotions, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's a really common misconception. But no, that's not the goal at all. The goal of emotion regulation isn't to get rid of emotions or, make people into zombies. Instead, it's about learning to understand your emotions, learning to reduce your vulnerability to negative ones, and ultimately decreasing emotional suffering. Emotions are often described like waves in the sea. They frequently last only seconds to minutes, but they can become self-perpetuating, turning into what we call moods.
Okay, so if they're like these powerful, sometimes fleeting waves, how do we even begin to get a handle on them? What's the first step in decoding our emotional experience?
It starts with learning to identify and describe them accurately. DBT outlines a pretty detailed process for this. You look for the prompting event, what triggered the emotion. It could be external or internal, even one emotion prompting another. Then your interpretation of that event. How did you appraise it? What meaning did you make? Then your body responses what sensations arise in your body, your body language posture, facial expression, your verbal communication of the emotion, and finally, your action urges, what does the emotion make you want to do? Just learning to name emotions is also crucial. People who can label their emotions accurately are often better able to regulate them. What's also key is understanding the functions of emotions. Why do we have them? Well, emotions serve to communicate to others, often very quickly and efficiently. Think of facial expressions. They're seen as necessary for survival. But they also communicate important information to ourselves. They act as signals or alarms. And this is crucial, especially for borderline individuals. Intense negative emotions can sometimes function as self-validation. In environments where feelings are consistently minimized or ignored, increasing emotional intensity can become a way, often unconsciously, to finally get concerns taken seriously.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, this can be a difficult and sensitive point for clients, as the very idea might feel invalidating initially, but it's often a core insight into the underlying dynamics.
Okay, so once we've kind of mapped out the emotion, understood its function, how do we then begin to regulate it? What are the practical strategies for, taming those powerful waves?
There are several really powerful strategies taught. One set focuses on reducing vulnerability to negative emotions in the first place. This is encapsulated by the PLEASE skills, it stands for. Treat physical illness, balance eating habits, avoid mood-altering drugs, non-prescribed, balance sleep, get exercise. And the last one is actually build mastery.
Mastery.
Yeah, build mastery. This involves deliberately engaging in activities that make you feel competent and effective, things you can master. It builds resilience.
Okay, please mastery. Got it.
Another major strategy is increasing positive emotions. This involves intentionally building positive experiences into your life, scheduling pleasant activities, attending to relationships, and importantly, avoiding avoidance of positive things. You're also taught to be mindful of these positive experiences when they happen, really savor them, and to distract from worries that might pull you away from them.
Makes sense. Focus on the good stuff, too.
Exactly. And finally, to decrease emotional suffering when difficult emotions do arise, there are two core techniques. First is mindfulness of current emotion. This involves observing, experiencing, and allowing the emotion without judging it or fighting it, just letting it be. This is where the famous dandelion story comes in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the story goes, a man tries every chemical, every tool to get rid of dandelions from his lawn. He fails miserably. Finally, he writes to the Department of Agriculture, lists everything he's tried, and asks what else he can do. The reply comes back. Dear sir, we suggest you learn to love those dandelions.
No.
It's a metaphor for radical acceptance of what is. Not to approve of it or resign yourself, but to accept the reality of the emotion so you can work with it, rather than fighting it and making it stronger. The second technique for decreasing suffering is acting opposite to current emotion. This means doing the opposite of what the emotion urges you to do. So, for example, if you're depressed, the urge might be to withdraw and stay in bed. Acting opposite means getting active, engaging with the world. If you're afraid, the urge is to avoid. Acting opposite means approaching what you fear safely. Even small things like relaxing facial muscles when you feel tense can be a form of acting opposite. It can allow feelings to just come and go, reducing their hold on you.
Wow. The profound insight from emotion regulation, then, is that the path to emotional freedom isn't about somehow eradicating feelings, but it's about mastering the art of navigation, understanding where they come from, consciously choosing how to respond to their urges, and recognizing that intense emotions, even when painful, can serve a purpose or give us information. Okay, last module, but definitely not least, distress tolerance. This sounds like the ultimate resilience training. What's the core idea here, especially when facing something truly overwhelming?
Right. The core idea of distress tolerance is exactly what it sounds like. Learning to bear pain skillfully. It makes a really critical distinction between pain and suffering. Pain, both physical and emotional, is presented as an inevitable part of life. It's like a signal that something is wrong. Suffering, however, is defined as pain plus non-acceptance of that pain. As our source notes, sometimes quoting clients, acceptance is the only way out of hell. The inability to accept immutable, painful facts of life leads to increased suffering, getting stuck. These skills are vital because, well, pain cannot be entirely avoided. And distress tolerance, at least in the short run, is essential for any attempt to change oneself or one's life. Otherwise, impulsive actions driven by the desire to escape the pain can interfere. Avoiding pain, paradoxically, often leads to more problems down the road, like we see in PTSD or pathological grieving.
Okay, so when you're really in the thick of a crisis, when that emotional storm is at its absolute peak, what are the immediate go-to strategies DBT offers to just get through that moment without making things worse?
DBT teaches 4 main sets of crisis survival strategies. The first is distracting. The goal here is temporary relief, just getting through the moment. It uses the mnemonic wise mind accepts. That's using activities, engaging in tasks, contributing, doing something for others, comparisons, comparing yourself to those less fortunate or to times you felt better, generating different emotions like watching a funny movie, pushing away the situation, mentally leaving or physically blocking it for a bit, using other thoughts like counting or puzzles, and using intense other sensations like holding ice or a hot shower. A specific example given is taking a brief vacation from adulthood, a planned, brief retreat to regroup, not an out-of-control escape.
Okay, except for distracting. What else?
Second is self-soothing. This involves comforting oneself through the 5 senses. Vision, looking at nice things. Hearing, listening to soothing music. Smell, nice aromas.
Yeah.
Taste, enjoying food or drink mindfully. And touch, a soft blanket, a warm bath. The manual notes that borderline individuals often struggle with self-soothing, sometimes believing they don't deserve it or expecting it only from others, so this is an important skill to learn.
Right.
Third is improving the moment. This isn't about changing the whole situation, but making this specific moment slightly more tolerable. Strategies include using imagery, like creating a mental safe place, finding or creating meaning in the suffering, like Viktor Frankl's work, using prayer, defined broadly as complete openness, not necessarily religious begging, relaxing, using skills like half smiling or breath exercises to accept reality with the body, focusing on one thing in the moment, just this breath, just this step, to avoid ruminating, and using encouragement, cheerleading oneself, being your own coach.
Improving the moment.
Okay.
And the fourth one.
The fourth crisis strategy is using pros and cons. This involves actively thinking about the positive and negative consequences of tolerating the distress versus not tolerating the distress, meaning giving into impulsive, potentially harmful urges like self-harm or substance use. It's about really weighing the short-term versus long-term outcomes of both choices.
Oh, okay. So those are the immediate survival tools. But beyond crisis, once you've survived the immediate moment, how does DBT teach a deeper, more profound level of acceptance that can maybe reshape your entire relationship with pain?
That brings us to the deeper acceptance skills, which are really at the heart of distress tolerance. Radical acceptance is paramount here. It's described as a complete acceptance from deep within, letting go of fighting reality. It's not approval, it's not liking it, it's not resignation. It's fully acknowledging this is what is, without bitterness or willfulness. It's presented as a choice, a conscious turning of the mind toward acceptance, and it requires continuous effort, like turning a ship. It's crucial to understand this isn't about approving of bad situations, but about acknowledging reality so you can then figure out how to cope effectively, transforming suffering into pain that can be tolerated.
The turning of the mind.
Yeah. And finally, closely related is the distinction between willingness versus willfulness, drawing on the work of Gerald May. Willingness is described as saying yes to the mystery of being alive in each moment. It's about doing what's needed in a situation, focusing on effectiveness, listening to your wise mind, and allowing yourself to connect to the universe to participate fully. Willfulness, in contrast, is imposing one's will on reality. It's trying to fix everything, refusing to tolerate the moment, refusing to do what's needed because it feels unfair or unpleasant. It's the opposite of doing what works, being effective. The manual uses some great metaphors like hitting baseballs from a pitching machine. Your job isn't to control the pitches, but just to do your best to hit each ball as it comes. Or playing a hand of cards, you don't choose the hand, but the object is to play whatever hand she gets as well as possible. And it highlights that willfulness, ironically, can often look like passivity or giving up, while willingness can be very active and engaged, even in difficult circumstances.
The ultimate insight from distress tolerance, then, it seems, is that while pain is inevitable, suffering is often optional, or at least can be reduced. It teaches us that true resilience comes not from avoiding discomfort, but from skillfully leaning into and accepting reality, even when it's incredibly difficult.
That's a profound shift in perspective. What an incredible journey through the depth and breadth of these DBT skills. I mean, from understanding the very nature of our emotions and how our biology interacts with our environment, to navigating complex relationships with more grace and learning to tolerate even the most profound distress. It's truly a comprehensive framework for navigating those emotional storms we talked about at the start of this deep dive.
It truly is. And, while DBT was specifically developed and proven effective for borderline personality disorder, it offers such powerful frameworks, insights, and really practical skills that extend far beyond that diagnosis. These are tools, at the end of the day, for anyone seeking to live a more balanced, effective, and accepting life, regardless of the specific struggles they face.
Indeed. So, as you reflect on this deep dive, maybe consider this. Where in your life are you currently trying to fight a reality that cannot be changed? And what might happen if you just experimented, with radical acceptance, even for just a moment? What freedom might you find in choosing willingness over willfulness,